Good morning, everyone. So we're starting a little early. And the thing about being early is that it's also part of leadership. Yesterday in the BSR board, we had a discussion about how to grapple with new emerging issues. When do you go out and take it on? Is it too early or is it too late? And we decided as an organization it's better to be too early than too late. So we see that part of the leadership that we're taking on. My name is Peter Michael Prusan Jorgensen. I'm part of BSR's executive committee. I oversee our work on collaboration, working with all of you in different collaborative initiatives. We had a terrific evening yesterday. I think we had a tremendous kickoff, and we have as exciting day ahead of us. I often get the question, what are you actually doing at this conference, and how does it play out? And there is a story where it's like we all start by getting really depressed about climate, about violence, about food, about hunger, and you name it. Then we get hopeful. And then when we leave, we're determined. And determination is definitely part of leadership. And when we think of leadership, we often think about that determination embedded in one company. But that's not the full story. There's more to it. In our views, one of the most important ways that business leads is through collaboration. It is by working with other companies. It is when you as a leader take on the job of the many with the many. It is when leading is really about finding shared solutions to global challenges. Collaborative leadership has been a fundamental tenet of BSR's work over the past 25 years. Really from the start of BSR, this is something that we have put a lot of emphasis on. And as we look to the future, looking to achieve the SDGs, looking to implement the Paris Agreement, this will become even more important. There's no way that we're going to achieve those ambitious targets working on our own. We need to work together. We really need to find ways to sort of leverage the transformative power of business, the resources of business to achieve those targets. And in doing so, it's just not enough to show up at the table. It's not enough to sign a statement to be in the right company. It's really about rolling up the sleeves and do the hard work. And hard work it is to collaborate. And that's where we think that we come in. We see ourselves as BSR, as an ideator, a designer, a facilitator, someone who supports you achieve your objectives working together. And we have about 25 years of experience doing this. And today we have about 25 different types of collaborative initiatives that engages more than 400 companies and stakeholders directly in achieving objectives that aim to create business returns and societal value. I thought it was prudent that Vice President Gore yesterday framed the sustainability revolution also as a giga business opportunity. Some of the work that we do, and I can't go through all of those 25 different initiatives that we run, but let me just give you a sense of some of the work that we do. So we have our Human Rights Working Group, where we have more than 35 companies working together to implement the UN Guiding Principles in Business and Human Rights. That's really essentially about building company capabilities to achieve those objectives. In our Global Impact Sourcing Coalition, we are about to create a global standard that would enable companies to direct their procurement spend to suppliers who practice inclusive hiring. This is inclusive growth in practice, business to business, using the market mechanism. Again, I want to reference Vice President Gore when he said, capitalism is a good thing. The market works. If we can make the market work in the right way, it will create inclusive growth. We have the Maritime Anti-Corruption Initiative that comprises more than 90 companies that are working to eliminate corruption throughout the global maritime supply chain. That's really systems change. That doesn't happen often. And we're really proud that this week we will announce how we have been successful in influencing laws and regulations in Argentina. That effectively means that the risk of corruption in ports in Argentina is going to dramatically down and save business thousands and thousands of dollars. And finally, I'm just point to one initiative, which is the Net Positive project we're doing together with Forum for the Future and Harvard School of Public Health. We're really working with business to find ways to help business give back more than what they take from people and planet. That's really what Net Positive is about. That is leading edge leadership. we want to do more in this area. We're going to invest in it. You will see in this year that we will be more visible in collaboration. We really want to work with you. So our message to you is really, if you are looking at global challenges that require shared solutions, come and talk to us, and we will do our best to help you achieve those objectives. So join us, lead through collaboration, and collaborate to leadership. Thank you.
I'll go up. Yeah, you can go on up. Great. Morning, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for coming inside instead of going to the beach. It's very appealing. Welcoming up to the stage, 3 friends, 3 great leaders, 3 former colleagues. We can all sit. I've worked with the 3 of you. I've traveled with 3 of you. I know your families, so who knows where this is going to go. One of the things that we talk about at BSR is the desire to create or enable sustainability leaders, and it's important inside BSR, but we also, as I mentioned yesterday, are utterly thrilled to know that there are great friends and colleagues who've gone on from BSR to do great things, and these are 3 shining examples of exactly that. Cara Hurst, who's the worldwide lead for sustainability at a little company headquartered for now only in Seattle called Amazon. You might have heard of them, I don't know. Michel Kobori is Vice President for Sustainability at Levi Strauss & Company. It's a company that is over 150 years old?
160 plus.
160 plus, and looking really good. And a company that's always been very much focused on values and the way it does things, a proud history of making change happen. Weidong Zhou, who was BSR's first China director, is now dual-hatted as the lead for the Sustainability Consortium in China, and a title that I am not able to remember from the Ministry of Environmental Protection in China. He is responsible for the strategic direction of all the projects, write this down, the Alliance of Green Consumption and Green Supply Chain within the Ministry of Environmental Protection. So we should have a great discussion. So let's dive right in, and I'll just go from my right along down the line. Let's start. You all joined BSR. I think, Weidong, you were the newbie joining in 2004, so that's a long time ago. What has changed since you each joined BSR in the world of sustainability and business?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and it's so fun to be back here and to see everybody and connect and see how BSR has grown and how sustainability has evolved, so that's really exciting. I joined BSR in 2001, I believe, and stayed for 11 years, and so a tremendous amount obviously has changed since then. I think that the biggest thing that has changed is that it's table stakes now to have all of these kind of activities within at least a corporate environment where you're thinking about, as we're growing businesses, growing services, for us growing things that products and services and ways to deliver things to our customers. It's absolutely just part of the fabric of the conversation that we talk about the environmental and social impacts of how we do that. Back when we were only 10 years old at BSR, I think I spent a lot of our energy trying to figure out how we convince people this was important, and how we convince policymakers that they should work with the private sector. And Peter, Michael, your introduction about collaboration, that was a very new concept, that we should have cross-sector collaboration and multilateral partnerships, and we should bring everybody to the table, and there was a tremendous amount of skepticism. And I think now we know more than ever that we absolutely need each other in all of these conversations. We need NGOs and multilaterals and corporates and government and all of the folks in these conversations. That seems de facto. And where we go from there is obviously we have a lot of work to do, but I think that I'm very happy not to spend any energy on trying to convince people of the importance or the need or the value in that kind of approach.
That's great. Thank you. Michael, when your views changed?
Right, so you hired me into the Human Rights Program at BSR in 1999, it was, so it's been almost 20 years. And reflecting on it, so much, right? I mean, everything you were talking about, it's hard to call out anything in particular, but I'll kind of default to what's changed that's been most important to me, and that is my attitude. And that changed yesterday afternoon at the BSR conference. So, I mean...
This sounds really good.
Yeah.
Very late-breaking news.
Yeah.
So we always have talked about how, at least I consider myself an optimistic pessimist, right? There's not enough of us doing as much as we need to do as fast as we need to do it. And we still do it because there's no other choice. I mean, we do it because we have to. But yesterday, listening to Vice President Gore, he showed us a lot of slides, but there was one that stuck out, at least to me. The most important slide that he showed me was the slide that indicated that the rate of increase in greenhouse gas emissions is not only slowing, it's leveling off. And that is the first thing I've seen in a long time that indicates to me that we're actually making a difference. And that was huge. And so I think the BSR conference has converted me from an optimistic pessimist to an optimistic optimist.
That is fantastic.
Thank you.
That is fantastic. So let me follow up on that. I think that's great, as the response shows. What will that cause you to do differently, or is this too new?
It does reinvigorate me. It's not, oh God, the world is going to collapse in 10 years because of whatever. It still might, not because of the environment, but actually because of inequality, probably. But at least there's a little more hope. At least we can point to some things that say, hey, maybe we are making a difference. Maybe we're not just sitting here feeling good about the things that we're doing.
Excellent. That's great. We want to come back to that. Wei Dong, you joined us, I said, in 2004. You are, in some ways, at the epicenter of change in the world. I'm hard-pressed to think about a country, certainly one so significant, that has changed so profoundly as China. Over your lifetime, your country has been utterly transformed. So we may need a couple hours here to hear from Wei Dong about what's changed. But in the world of sustainability, what do you think of that's changed from the time you joined BSR?
Yeah, so as you said, I joined actually the 2005 January 1st with another Eric Olsen, Geir Westergaard. So that time, it's 12 years ago in China, we talked the CSR, sustainability, is a very new term. Very small group of people, dealing with issues. Most program in China about CSR, most people know is the compliance auditing. But we can see the big changes, particular in the, compared 10 years ago, we more focus on like a social side, labor condition, migrant workers, fast-growing economy. Gradually, I think the big changes I see is the government has changed to more environmental focus now, and also, China, they considering as we call the sustainable development goals. The first thing to tackle is the poverty reduction. 60 million people out of the poverty during the last 10 years. I think that's what I see the country has been changed. 60 million, you see, by 10 years. And another big change is, China is becoming more proactive than conservative before, when people talking about lots of issues, challenges China has. As there is a huge country, definitely there's problems, but people working in China, particularly on ground, and sustainability and CSR, I see they're good, growing, and either in terms of community of CSR, also the work they have done. 2008, when we starting CSR reporting with our largest Chinese state company, China Mobile, I think Dunstan here, right? Dunstan made the first trip to Beijing. And we got the state-owned company work with BSR on sustainability and the DJSI, such things, very new. But now by today, 10 years later, 2,000 plus Chinese companies starting doing CSR reporting and the setting up a strategy. So that's what I glad to see, towards, particularly in our field, the changes made. Yeah.
It's all really interesting. So Peter Michel talked about how we sometimes can be hard on ourselves. Michael, you talked about pessimism, optimism. I do think that this community often achieves success, says, okay, that's it, bank it, and then let's move on to something else. I hope this is an opportunity to think about the way things really have changed. It just occurs to me in sitting up here that the three of you have all worked for businesses. There's public sector experience, there's civil society experience. You know the philanthropic world reasonably well through your activities. So we all talk about collaboration. We talk about it all the time. Peter Michel just did. It is absolutely core. It's hard. So let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, looking ahead, should we be thinking about collaboration in different ways?
I think that there's an opportunity to continue to push to go faster. I know that there's an impatience with a lot of collaboration and groups that have been talking for a while to see action. And I think there's lots of different things that play a role in that. Certainly at Amazon, a lot of the collaboration that we do, we try and put technology at the center of that to facilitate what can be done through machine learning versus what can when you bring people together and they spend valuable time traveling and coming to events like this, you really want to maximize that time. And I think that's true of some of the collaboration as well. Initially, it was a big deal just to get people in the same room, but I think we're beyond that. And so what can we do to drive all of the information and learning and exchange of data that when you get people together, they're actually making decisions or they're making change. And I think that's something we should all push for more of. I think there's, I guess, frankly, in my opinion, it's still a lot of convening that doesn't result in action. And I think we're going to hit a point at which people tire of that.
Yeah, I would totally underscore that and say, I mean, I think we've all spent more hours on industry collaborations and working groups than we'd like to admit over the past 20 years. And as we've learned, they're important, but they're only useful when they stop talking and start doing, number one. And I think they're also only useful when they're raising the bar. And they're not lowering the bar, and they're not slowing down the rate of progress. And so, how many of you in the audience are part of an industry or multi-stakeholder working group or collaboration? Look at that, almost everybody. So here's what I would say. Next time you're in that group, don't sit and listen. Don't just sit and talk, but commit you and your company to raising the bar and make it happen. Because I think, as you were saying, as you're both saying, we need to make more progress. And I think we actually need to challenge ourselves more. We need to challenge ourselves and our companies, and frankly, each other. I think we're too soft on each other. We're very polite. We're very supportive and congratulatory. I think we need to challenge you to say, hey, are we doing as much as we can? Because I know when I look in the mirror and ask myself that, the answer is no. So let's challenge all of us. Let's be less polite and let's be more uncomfortable. Like I'm making you all uncomfortable right now.
I was going to say, Michael, that's the most stupid, absurd thing I've ever heard. Is that what you're looking for?
Is this argument or contradiction?
Yeah. It's impoliteness. I think it's a really great and really important point. And on collaboration, as you know, I was part of a discussion with a group of apparel companies and stakeholder groups over the weekend. SEDEX, which aggregates data, said they have done a survey. They've found 48 different standards just for the apparel industry alone, and that 87% of the provisions are the same. And so we've got a system where you've got nearly 50 different standards dealing with 13% of the rules. That's, you know, there are a lot of people who would come in, if we hired BCG to come in and look at that, they would not think that's very smart.
But I think to Michael's point, we knew that 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, you know, I think the question is, what are we doing to change that?
Yep.
So that's not, you know, that's not new information. So I think what's interesting about it is how do we then take what we know and kind of, you know, make a catalytic leap to a different state?
So let me ask this question, wait on, jump in. What does the sustainability community do now that the sustainability community should do less of? I talked about this last night, because I agree with you, Michael. I think we do, some of the things we do because we do them, not necessarily because we know that they are making a difference. And I'll repeat what I said, that if we're challenging businesses to behave differently, the sustainability community, sustainability leaders also need to behave differently. It makes no sense not to do that. So, Wei Dong, or any of the three of you, what would you challenge? What are some things that are familiar parts of the sustainability landscape that deserve to be challenged? Cara, it sounds like you have a lot of answers.
So from my experience, particular when, you know, the period I worked with BSR for 7 years, the key thing that I learned, say, you need to behave to a big vision, long-term thinking, but also, I think the most important is get your hands on, get your hand dirty. I can remember very clearly now in my, you know, all lots of pictures around me. When I started this work in China, it's still not, you know, people understand. You blah, 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 you talk, you know, this. We can't understand. But when you know, get your hands on the project, we engage with like migrant workers in the factory, you know, talking about the issue of overtime. We work with a miner in the mining sector. We work with villagers, farmers. We're sleeping in the farmer's house doing project. Then actually it helps yourself. You know, when you talk about it in the boardroom, in the meeting room, you can really understand what the truths, the challenges, real people. We talk about sustainability. I think that's what I learned. I benefit lots from BSR's project. Very diversity project. We have, you know, that time we have like 4 people in Guangzhou start, but you know, gradually, because this approach, you know, we work with some of member companies, we get, you know, very hands-on project, you know, gradually we growing up the team, the capacity as well. So I think that's the key message. I think you have to be in the real situation rather than just talk about what you read, what you heard. Yeah.
And less blah, blah, blah. I think that was very eloquent, in fact.
We do need blah, blah, but we also, we can reduce the time like 40% maximum blah, blah.
So we're not just trying to cap carbon, we're also trying to cap blah, blah. Yeah, I think that's good. Michael and Cara, what should this community be doing less of? Or should be challenged?
You have a lot to say, right?
It's always fun to be with people who know you well. I think Amazon is a younger company, certainly a lot younger than Levi's, in our early 20s. And we have the opportunity to learn a lot and leapfrog, in a sense, from what's been done in the sustainability field. And one of the things coming in the door there, I've been there 3 years now, that I was adamant about doing is to not engage in the activity that I did not think was value added. And for us, that looks like a lot of surveys and reports and activity that I think we would spend a lot of internal time on, and it would speak to a very small audience, quite frankly, kind of the echo chamber of sustainability. We'd much rather use our resources, big as they are, but also, as you all know, I mean, anybody has only 24 hours in the day, so limited bandwidth to get at the things that are most impactful and material, and to spend the time really figuring out what that is and cut out the noise about what we should be doing. There are, I think, has evolved in the sustainability field, having been in it a long time now and been a part of a lot of that work myself. there are things people tell you, you have to do this and you have to do that, and if you don't report here, you're not credible, and if you don't do it this way or put it out in this format, then you're not credible. Well, I challenge all of that. And I think that all of us, whether you're in an NGO or a company, should think about how those mechanisms that served us well in the past to drive certain behaviors that we needed to drive may not be the ones we need going forward. And if they're not adding huge amount of value to whoever you're focused on, and for us it's our customers, then don't do it, don't engage, and earn your trust and your credibility some other way. And that's what we're doing. I'd also echo, I think the piece about getting out and talking to people. And it's funny because I do think a lot about the work that we did in factories and fields and all of that over the years. I had the opportunity last week to be in Texas, and we had, and Melanie, who's here from Amazon as well, was there, and we got the opportunity to talk to 27 landowners that had come together to put their land together and allow us to have a wind farm in Snyder, Texas. And engaging with those folks and seeing the transformation that the clean energy economy and that wind was bringing to their very small community in Snyder, Texas, which had traditionally relied on oil as the only way to encourage economic development, and seeing their transformation as a culture from oil to wind and what that meant and what it meant for jobs, what it means for new technology skills. There's a revolution going on in this country. So I think it's not only we tend to think about how can we help in factories outside the US or in agriculture, but there's an absolute massive economic boom that can happen through the clean energy economy here in the United States. Solar jobs are growing, wind is growing, and seeing that in the very small town of Snyder, Texas was one of those transformational moments for me as well, and to say, this is how we bring people along with us, and this is the opportunity that we can give them, and it was just super encouraging as well.
Michael, what should we challenge?
I would say two things to our multi-stakeholder and NGO partners. Get together and collaborate, and stop competing for our time and attention and resources. And I think the We Mean Business coalition that you helped put together around climate was a great example of what needs to change, and how from civil society there can be a coming together saying, hey, you're doing this great, focus on that, we'll do this other thing. And so you're coming back to the private sector with a more unified front of how we engage with you all. That will be just much more efficient and effective. And the other thing I would challenge all of us to think about is less incremental change and more, how do we change the system? And that's been one of the big differences from 20 years ago. We were talking about incremental change, protecting our own companies. Now, leading companies are talking about, how do we change the system to be more sustainable?
I think that's a crucial point, and one of the things that's really interesting to me is that it is the leading companies that are saying there are limits to what we can do on our own. I think that's really significant. It's recognizing that all of the issues we're dealing with are coming from systems issues. Let me shift gears a little bit, because while the three of you look remarkably young, you have been at this for a while. What advice would you give? We have a lot of people in the audience who are at an earlier stage in their career. In this time when so much is changing, what is a bit of career wisdom you might be able to offer to people in terms of the skills they ought to be building to have really serious impact over the next 10 years?
I always tell people, don't be afraid to be a generalist. And one of the reasons is when we do a lot of informational interviews or people coming out of schools, they want to know, where should I focus? What is the thing I should be expert at in order to get a job in sustainability? And this is, we all have our own experiences in how we've come up. And for me, I worked in politics. I worked for a senator and a mayor. I worked in Silicon Valley for a while, early in tech 1.0 startups, and then came to BSR and have had an opportunity to see across many different issues, many different companies, many different geographies, sectors, all of that. And what it's allowed me to do is to push systems thinking and to push the holistic view and to make connections that other people inside of Amazon don't see. And I think that is, that kind of systems thinking and that holistic approach is actually the gold for sustainability. That's where we can drive value that other people can't see. And it's not to say that you shouldn't develop expertise in certain areas, find out what you're passionate about and follow that and dive deep on that. But when I got to Amazon, we have these leadership principles that guide everything that we do, and they really do live within the company. And they, said, okay, well, as a leader here, you're expected to dive deep and think big. And I was like, okay, which one is it? And it's both, right? You're expected to be an expert on everything that you do, and you're expected to pull up and think really big. You're expected to, kind of simplify and invent new solutions that are both very thought through, but also, new and different for everybody. And I think that's exactly what sustainability can do. If you're able to see what different sectors are doing, you can say, well, the electronics sector did this, so why doesn't the apparel sector think about doing it that way? Or, here's something that really worked in agriculture that might be interesting for pharmaceuticals. And you can kind of piece those things together and I think move faster because of it. So I would say that systems thinking, and that kind of generalist approach actually serves you really, really well in the field of sustainability.
And to that point, I think it's no coincidence that both of us went to the Graduate School of Public Policy at Berkeley.
That is true.
Which encourages that systems thinking. Seriously.
People must be from Stanford, given all the laughing. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll excuse you. Advice, I absolutely agree with that. I will use some advice that we heard from one of our old friends, Bob Langert, who used to head up sustainability at McDonald's. So when he retired a few years ago, so I'll take his advice and elaborate on it. He said there's 3 qualities, and I'll add a 4th. There's 4 qualities, I think, that are going to be really important to being successful in sustainability over the next 10 years. The first one is passion to change the world. The second is patience for all of those people who don't really understand. The third is perseverance, because there are going to be inevitable setbacks like we're seeing right now. And the last quality is charm, because we have to be able to influence others, and I think we also have to be able to laugh at ourselves and keep that sense of humor about what we're doing.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. You were very charming, apparently. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Wei Dong, every time I go to China, I'm just so inspired by younger professionals, younger Chinese professionals who are very passionate, who are global in their outlook, very proud of China's development and global in their outlook.
Yeah.
And I'm very much thinking of our own colleagues at BSR, as well as in China, as well as others. What advice would you give, having been in some ways present at the creation of serious work on sustainable business in China?
Yeah, for those people, I think is always like when I set up BSR team with us from 1 person, we grew up to nearly to 30 people at that time in China. I think the key things I see as a professional, firstly, is the attitude. You have to have optimism. You have to, passion we just mentioned. Your attitude is very important. The second, I think you need to have the separate. Don't afraid to be failed. We call here is the country called nothing is impossible. Sometimes when we do the project, because CSR sustainability is very diverse. We say the issue is too much, too many. Bigger from climate change, lower from the factory floor. So I would say you don't be afraid to learn new things. You need to challenge yourself first. The second, you need to have the focus to identify with a big goal, we call SDGs, 17 goals. Where's your direction or your professional development direction? You have to finding, your interest with big goals. Then I think secondly, as I just mentioned, you get your hands on very specific project you have most interest to start with. I think by doing that will help you lots to be becoming field experts. I think today we will see the former BSR alumni in the Asia and China. The team. Those people has been now working like all those the members here today. They're working in the Amazon, in the IKEA, Apple, Dell. So another thing in China we say BSR is a West Point school for CSR. So I think that's because people really get the project hands-on and getting more confidence to develop both the organization needs and yourself.
Thank you. This is great advice from all three of you. Last question to close out. So we're talking a lot now about redefining sustainable business on the theory, what we discussed last night, disruption in business, clear roadmap on sustainability, and governance gaps that mean that business leadership is more important. Each of you come from multiple perspectives on this, but Cara, from the perspective of a company that it does a lot of things, but at least began at tech, Michael, consumer, Weidong, China. What would you say in the next 5 to 10 years? How should we redefine sustainable business based on the changes that you see from your perspectives? Cara, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, so we're customer obsessed. That kind of leads everything that we do. And I think what my hope is that we transform consumption in a way that allows our customer to access information about the products and services and logistics and anything that they care about in terms of how they want to move goods in and out of their home, how they want to maybe either access services or provide services themselves. So it's really thinking about, we have a lot of information in front of us. We have for a long time now, but it's only increasing. And so what is our role in helping people to get to the information that they care about? What is our role in driving that information to people in a simplified way? I don't think that we should be too precious about sustainability, and I think we have been for too long. I am very happy if we do lots of things for our customers that allow them to understand product origin and information about things that they care about, and we never use the jargon of sustainability to do that. I think that's very alienating, actually. So I think one of the things you'll see is more data, more information, but in ways that are simplified, in ways that are meaningful. We're using a lot of technology behind that. Whether it's putting information into people's homes through, smart home assistants, or it's providing an ability. One of the things I see that we're doing is I have a large software team, a tech team, and a machine learning team within my sustainability organization. And so it's a very different kind of approach. But what we're trying to do with that is to drive different abilities for people to kind of think about how you look at a product. You don't need now all the packaging you see on a shelf, right? We don't need what we call the romance packaging. You don't need the embedded security devices. You don't need the extra packaging. You can go in if you're shopping online, and more people are, and you can look at the product and watch a video and do all sorts of things that it's just a different experience. And so look at where the world is going and how people are accessing products and services, and meet them there with the kind of information that they care about. Of course, as a sustainability person, we want to do that in a way that is the best for people and the planet, but I don't need to have that out front necessarily. So I think that tech is enabling in that way.
Fantastic. Michael?
I would say we have to think differently about consumers and consumption. And, we're all talking about the circular economy. For us as an apparel company, right, it's not enough to just have a recycling program. We've got to think on the front end, are we encouraging people to consume more? And I mean, at Levi's, we're lucky, right? Our product can last 100 years. And so how do we build on that is something we've got to think differently about, right? So we now have tailor shops in Levi's stores where you can go in, take your old Levi's, get them repaired. These 501s, I've taken in and repaired them 3 times already, so we're extending the life, right? You can go to the tailor shop and get your garment altered so it never goes out of style. You can go into the tailor shop and get your trucker jacket customized so it becomes a reflection of you and you want to keep it for your entire lifetime, right? This is my jacket. It has M. Kobori. Nobody else wants this, right? So, you know, we're doing these things to extend the life of the product. And we also started this other thing where we're taking old Levi's, refurbishing them and reselling them as authorized vintage Levi's, okay? We're selling the same product twice, right? Tell your CFO this. We're getting twice the revenue out of the same product. Like, that is sustainable in so many ways. So how do we think differently, right, about this? And how do we shift our thinking from consumers and consumption to providing lifetime value for our fellow human beings? I think that those are the questions, I think.
Great vision, yeah. Weidong.
Yeah, so from a channel point of view, I would say a sustainable channel will make a more sustainable world, because as a 1.4 billion people, that's very important to watch out what's the next 5-10 years channel. But just 12 hours ago, in Beijing, the new channel leadership just released with their 7 powerful Politburo people. So this is already strong message was out in the big newspaper in China. Oh, I think today we'll read your newspaper as well about the new strategy of the new leadership under President Xi. So I think we call the new time, new area, make a new channel. And the strong message is they make called China terminology, civilization of ecology of new channel. And they put on the environmental concern very seriously. So because now I'm working as a Executive Secretary General for Green Consumption and Green Supply Chain with the MEP, Ministry of Environment. Just during the last 2 months, I think it's 6 weeks, the first round of environmental, we call it inspection delegation to the provincial and the big city surrounding Beijing to tackle the smoke and air pollution issues. The very, very strong action has been made just in the last 2 months. I think many of the members of BSR or your key suppliers already affected. Lots of factory, thousands factory was shut down. You know, they just pull off your electricity, cut your water, you know, because your standards didn't meet. So they're already delivered a very strong message. So I think impact of all of us, you know, will be watched more closely how, you know, that's with our business in China. The second, I think, is a bigger, you know, sustainable issues from China is a one belt, one road strategy. This is a national strategy. It's China becoming more stronger, so they will, you know, along the 2 roads. One is the old, it's a new Silk Road. One is we call the Ocean Silk Road. So that's an impact about more than 50 countries from Southeast Asia, from East Europe, you know, to the to the Africa as well. So I think this China strategy will definitely involve all of you, the future works. Yeah.
Well, this has been just great. Thank you, all 3 of you, for being part of our Milestone Conference. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your friendship. I really appreciate your being here with us. So join me in thanking these 3 great people.